Hello, my name is Lucas, this is Bit of Lit, and I'm here to talk about a fantastic Chinese novel that I've read very recently, published in 1995. That would be Chronicle of a Blood Merchant, written by Yu Hua. I believe the Chinese name is Xu Sanguan卖血记, something like that. I might have my tones wrong. If you are Chinese and you are watching this, please let me know. Anyway, I think I was close enough. People would understand what I was saying. Anyway, Yu Hua is an interesting author. He's very famous in China. And if you are at all curious about Chinese culture or Chinese literary movements, literary fiction, then I highly recommend that you read Yu Hua's work, because you will get a good idea about, Chinese problems that have happened, particularly during his childhood, the Cultural Revolution, which preoccupies a lot of his imagination. And what I love about this book is the dramatic tensions of family and bloodlines and putting your life at risk, and why you do it and who you do it for, and of course the struggles that people were facing during the 60s, 70s, during the famine times, and the radical changes that were happening in China, culturally speaking, at that time as well. There's just so much in here that's really great, and it's a really great example of sort of telling the truth through fiction. I believe this is his most popular book that has sold very, very well. So this might be a really great place to start, and then move on to Live, Brothers, or Seventh Day. This is about a young man. By the end of the book, he's an older man, in his 60s, but he starts as a young man, and he's going with his friends, Gunlong and Ah Fang, to go sell blood. And they teach him how to do it safely, when he should do it, why he should do it, all that kind of stuff, what precautions he should take, how to do it effectively. And he uses this method of selling blood, which is, in his time, especially because he lives in a city, seems like people in the countryside at the time would have seen this as a really useful thing and not seen it as much of a problem. But he lived in the city, so a lot of people have some suspicions or are worried about that. But because he learned about it as a young man, he uses it from time to time as a way to make some emergency money. And there are plenty of emergencies that this man goes through, whether it's his first son, who he finds out is not his child, but in fact the child of his wife and another man who she was set to marry, but that man took advantage of her one day, but right before they got married, when he found out that he was no longer going to marry Xu Sanguan's wife, Xu Yulan. Or whether it's later on when the children, the first two children, Ila, Arla, are going out into where the peasants live to be re-educated by them and trying to give them some money. Or before that, I should say, when they're starving and Xu Sanguan wants to have a nice meal other than the corn gruel that they've been eating. But of course, there are tensions with blood, right? Not only selling blood, but bloodlines, because his first son, who's his favorite, is not his biological son, so he feels very betrayed by his wife, and feels like he's lost a lot of face, and his wife has lost a lot of face, a lot of respect from the community, basically. And he has a lot of problems with his first son, Ila, which means first joy, Arla, second joy, Sanla, third joy. He has a lot of problems with his first son because his son almost kills the blacksmith's child by bashing his head in with a rock. and he doesn't want to pay for that because it's not his kid, but He Xiaoyong won't pay for anything. And then the blacksmith comes and takes everything from his home and to try to sell it. Later, when they're starving, he doesn't want to pay for Ila to eat a nice soup noodle dinner at the restaurant because it's not his child. Of course, eventually he comes to realize that he has to be a good man and a good father, and no one else will take him in. And he comes to love and respect his son as his son. Takes him a long time, but he comes around eventually. Or, he sells blood when he feels like his sons aren't coming back from their missions, I guess. I don't know exactly what to call it, from their posts out in the countryside as early as some of the other kids who've been gone for a while but came back much earlier. He wants to take care of them, so he sells blood then. And when he finds out that his oldest son, the child who has caused him the most grief emotionally, publicly, this kind of thing, finds out that his son has hepatitis, needs to go to Shanghai, which is a ways away. He tries to sell his blood as much as possible all the way down the line over 2 weeks, which nearly kills him. Of course, he also sells blood to buy some nice things for a woman that he has an affair with, because he feels slighted by everything that's happened in his life with his wife, with his son, with his sons, I should say. And he tries to buy something nice for the favor that the other woman gave him, even though she was in bed with a broken leg and couldn't have done anything anyway. We don't have a very moral, great character, but he tries his best. Yeah, he's very problematic, but you still kind of root for him. It's very interesting and very well done by Yu Hua. All the characters have such liveliness to them. You really feel the pain Ila feels when he's rejected by his real father and his biological father, and Xu Sanguan, his adoptive father, in a sense, even though he raised him not knowing, it wasn't his real child. Once he finds out that he was a cuckold, so much drama, so much tension, and it all interweaves perfectly with everything that goes on with the change of the culture, the change of the tides, the whether it's famine or everything gets taken and repurposed for this new project of communism and all that, as it's finally coming to the countryside city that he lives in. It's very moving. What is particularly interesting to me is that in the afterword it says that Yu Hua was a very experimental short story writer in the 80s. And he was sort of writing recursive stories, or stories that came back onto each other or ended in strange ways, and had a lot of formal, unique language used and this kind of thing. I haven't read these short stories, but that's what he was saying. But then suddenly, as China modernized and the market liberalized more and more, capitalist interest, rather than, some of the things it says he was writing in his short stories seem very anti-authoritarian. And a lot of his work, his most famous work, comes after Tiananmen Square incident. So, him and Su Tong, and I think Mo Yan to an extent, are all sort of in a group of a literary movement. I don't know exactly what it's called, but where they talk about some of these issues in their work, and others too, I'm sure, but I don't know who they are. Anyway, this book comes out in 1995, China's really modernizing rapidly. Things are changing. He's got to change his style, right? I believe this is his second or third novel, but he's starting to change his style, and it's interesting that it focuses on selling blood, which it says in the afterword that there were lots of little institutions, little blood markets, I guess, where you could go sell blood. So that was something that was really happening. But selling, it's just interesting that as China's market liberalizes and becomes more capitalistic, this idea of selling your blood, selling your warmth, selling your life, in a sense, is coming out during that time for more commercial interests. Something to be said there. Also, this book, it says, came out a little bit before it was revealed, a very controversial time period where these blood banks, I guess, were full of corrupt officials and mismanagement, and were spreading HIV. So this book definitely it doesn't talk about HIV in this book, but put those ideas of selling blood into people's minds more clearly. And anyway, I don't really know what else to say. I'm kind of spun out. It's an incredible novel, very rich characters, very wonderful dramatic tension, very well executed, incredible book. And I recommend you try it. Thank you.